Hey guys, Stucky here. You ever wanted to try the best version of the Action Network app? Well, now is the perfect opportunity to do so because we have a special offer to celebrate the month of March and the NCAA tournament. You can get pro access for just $9.99 for the first month. That will give you access to things like Sean Kerner's player prop projections, which are invaluable, real-time money percentages, and our model's biggest edges, and much more. All you have to do is head over to actionnetwork.com/madness. That's actionnetwork.com/madness and get there before the deal expires. Cheers. Let's go out west and talk a little Big Sky. This tournament will take place in Boise, Idaho between March 9th and 13th. EWU, Eastern Washington. The famous Rodney Stuckey's alma mater, who is the reason I have my Twitter handle. They're the top overall seed. The top 6 seeds get a bye here, which means the 7 and 8 Northern Arizona and Idaho State will play each other, and then the 9 and 10 Idaho and Sacramento State will play in the first round on Saturday. This tournament kicks off Saturday, March 9th. Championship will be played on Wednesday, March 13th. So tough task for those first 4 teams. Really interesting conference. I don't think that the gap between many of these teams is that great. I think Weber State has the best player in the conference by far. Eastern Washington probably has the best offense, but they're vulnerable. I don't see any of these teams, for what it's worth, making any noise in the tournament. I think these teams, whoever gets out of here, is getting crushed. But Cowboys, let me throw it to you to kind of set the stage. What are you seeing in the Big Sky?
All right, I have a few nice things to say about this conference. I tend to agree with you. It's probably unlikely that they're going to win a game in the Big Dance. But let's start with this. 6 of the 10 teams are outside of the Ken Palm 230. So there's a lot of college basketball speed bumps, basically laying down here. But then you have 3 contenders all clustered in that 140 to 155 range in Ken Palm: Eastern Washington, Weber, and Montana. And I'm just going to get started with this. I'm out on Montana in this grouping. Yes, they got to 21 wins on the season, but they were beaten soundly by Eastern in 2 games. They also suffered a season sweep against Northern Colorado, tossed in a split against Weber. They just didn't rise to the occasion against quality opponents. They basically stacked wins over teams that they should beat. They didn't drop any games really throughout the course of the conference season against teams that they should be competitive against. But the player to keep an eye on is Money Williams, not just a phenomenal name, but their breakout freshman star. He was on his way to be a runaway freshman player of the year in this conference, suffered a leg injury, but he's back. He only played 5 minutes in his return, though, on March 4th. He could be an X factor. If he looks good in their first game, that could change my opinion on Montana. But when I'm thinking winner here, I'm going to go with Weber State. They're 3-1 to win this thing. The Wildcats were the preseason favorite, and you mentioned him, Dylan Jones, conference player of the year, preseason, and certainly lived up to that down the stretch. You look at their entire resume, though, they upset St. Mary's, which looks phenomenal. But then they had a 1-point loss to Gardner-Webb, a 2-point loss to Colgate in the non-con, and then a 3-game skid early in Big Sky play where they lose those 3 games by a total of 7 points. And then all of a sudden they're written off. Well, they closed the year on an 8-2 straight up run. Jones has elevated his play back up to conference player of the year caliber. And since February 1st, they're the top team in the conference, according to Bart Torvik. Their path, Montana State, then probably Eastern Washington to get to the finals. They won at Eastern by 6 on February 17th and lost by 2 in the other game. You mentioned the Eagles being a vulnerable team. I agree. And then Montana State, they split with. So I like the path to get to the title game. And then when you break down the Wildcats in general, the team doesn't beat itself. They have fewer than 10 turnovers per game, which is making them one of the best in the country in that regard. They can shoot. They have a superstar. Their defense is the issue. It's just a mess. You look at, their advanced metrics, a few of them buried in the 300s. Not great. But it's worth noting shot quality believes they're due for a positive regression in terms of luck, while Eastern, the favorite in this tournament, is due for a negative regression. And finally, they play better against better teams. It's a stat I keep bringing up that Evan Maya is tossing around. They're 12th nationally when punching up, playing against quality teams. So I think you're getting a pretty good number on arguably the best team, at least in the last month in this conference at 3-1. I can talk deep sleeper, but there wasn't a lot that I like. So I'll kick it to you guys first before I share that one.
I love
Nope.
when I agree with Calabrese. Like that's he nailed this for me. I think I would actually push back on you, Stuck. If Weber wins this, I think they can make noise in March, exactly for the reason Calabrese just said. 12th in the country in opponent adjust. I buy that. They've been really good against good teams. The St. Mary's win was awesome. I also really like that Yale win. It went to overtime, but they emerged with a double-digit victory there. They have the best player in the conference. To me, you compare them to the two best metric teams in this league, Montana and Eastern Washington. Weber, as Mike said, has been the best team since February 1st. They're 155th in the country per Torvik in that span. Montana and Eastern Washington's defenses are both in the 300 plus range in that span. You can't tell me we trust either of those teams defensively at all right now. So you take the team with the best player, Dylan Jones, who truly, it's not just that he's the best player in this conference. He's one of the best players in the country. Like he was just named on the Julius Erving finalist list this week. That's very rare for a player in the Big Sky to receive that type of national recognition. And he deserves it. 20 plus points in 9 of his last 10, 21, 10, and 5 are his season long averages. Like to me, that is one of those teams that you look for, like who's the 15 seed that could do some damage this year. You want to have a player you believe in like that. You want to have some track record of getting up for big games. I hope they view this tournament as big games. Obviously, they need to win it to get there, so I would think they do, and I think their track record bodes well for something like this, where you've got to win a couple games in a row. I actually like them to blitz Montana State as far as a matchup goes, too, in the first round. That was their last game they just played. They blew it. It was a 28-8 run in the final 10 minutes of that game. Montana State, who is not a great offensive team by any means, shot 13 for 27 from 3. They just could not miss in the final 10 minutes of that game. Weber was 4 for 17 themselves. I imagine they're very excited to get their hands on them immediately again. That's a team that I think they're significantly better than. They beat them by 22 in December. So I'll be looking to back them. Whatever that number opens up at, I think Weber runs them out of the gym, gets off to a good start in this tournament, and then cruises. Honestly, I expect them to win this league. 3-1 is great value to me.
Yeah, my pushback on Weber would be, I mean, by the way, if we look historically, like, tell me a team in the past 20 years in the Big Sky that's done anything. The Big Sky has to be one of the biggest failures as far as tournament success. Like, what are we talking about? I'm trying to remember the last Big Sky. I mean, the Big Sky's they're always underperform. They don't have the physicality or the athleticism. My problem with these teams that are so reliant on one guy, like what's Dylan Jones, top 5 usage rate probably, but he doesn't come out of the game. He's definitely the best player. He's awesome to watch, but like now you're going up against high major athleticism with a week to prep and scout you, right? Like we saw this with, kind of like Drew Pember, right? With UNC Asheville, like UCLA had a week to prepare, and we saw how dominant Drew Pember was in his league, and then you get to the dance and they lose by 50. And they just can't compete. So like I think that it would be pretty easy, or not easy. I mean, Dylan Jones is a really good player, but this isn't no disrespect to Jones or Weber State, but a lot of times when you see these mid majors that are so reliant on one guy, that once they get to the tournament, it becomes tough. I think that the recipe for an upset is you have to have multiple guys, multiple shooters. You can't be too reliant on someone, because you're not used to going up against high major athleticism, and the entire scout is going to be based on stopping you. Do you want to counter that at all, Greg?
No, I hear you on being a little bit one-dimensional. I did look it up just to make sure, because I could have sworn Weber had some NCAA tournament win that it was very early on in my life. They did upset Michigan State. That would be why. They beat my Spartans as a 14 seed back in 95. So
and did they beat
way back? Howard Arsenault beat like North Carolina, right?
Harold the Show Arsenault, may he live on forever. Yes, I agree with what you're saying, Stuck, but for different reasons. I think it's like Jones could have a 20 and 7 and 5 assist game, and they could still lose by 40 because of this defense. Like, even if he plays well, like I think that's why the upset of St. Mary's, it's incredibly impressive, but it makes sense to me. It's like a low possession game, and they were able to, rely on Jones a little bit I think they won like 64, 62, something like that. That's the kind of matchup they need. If they get in a game with an up and down team, they're going to get run off the floor because the more possessions you put out there with the, limitations from an athletic perspective that they have. I agree with you. I think it's the defense. I don't think it's going to burn them in this tournament, but it would definitely move me off picking them as an upset candidate.
Yeah, I the Money Williams is interesting. I mean, he's advanced metrics wise, he's not been great, but he can fill up a stat sheet. My problem is you just saw him play. What did he play? 5 minutes? Like, how
He
much
played
can
5 minutes. Yeah. So, like, is he even ready? Are they going to shut him down? Like, we just don't know. So he really is a wild card in that regard.
All right, Bob, before I share my final thoughts, you did hint at a deep sleeper, and I don't know if you're going to. I hope you're not going to the 7 through 10 seeds who have to win 4 games, but you never know. Where you headed, Calabrese? Curious.
I'm going to go the Vikings of Portland State. They're 17-1. Their road is likely going to be Montana and Northern Colorado to get to the title game. Here's some good news. They crushed Montana at home earlier this season, winning by 26. They also beat Northern Colorado at home by 10. So I don't have to use my imagination. I've seen them play well against these exact teams. And they have a star of their own. They got KJ Allen. He has 3 games with 24 plus and 9 plus rebounds in his last 5 games. And he gets the line a ton, which is something that I like in terms of volume score. That kind of gives him a very high floor in terms of what he can give Portland State in this tournament run. And they also force a ton of turnovers. They're a decent offensive rebounding team. That's a lot of extra scoring and possessions for a team that's going to need it to be able to put together 2 or 3 upsets to win this tournament. So 17-1, there is a couple teams like Northern Arizona, just couldn't talk myself into it. As I mentioned at the top, some real dregs. I think Portland State, if everything goes right, they can get to the title game, and then holding a 7-1 ticket, a 17-1 ticket is just a license to print money. So I'll go with the Vikings here.
So this was this happens sometimes when this is kind of the blending when you're handicapping, the blending of art and science, so to speak, is the team that I show value on from a numbers perspective is Montana, but I don't trust them, so I'm not betting them. And I don't mind. I think you guys have convinced me, so I think I'm going to ride with you guys, and we will make it a consensus. Greg, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share on the Big Sky?
I'm very happy whenever we get a consensus, gentlemen. We've been doing this all season long, and it just warms my heart when those moments come up. The only long shot I want to throw out, which goes directly against the team we all just said we're in on. I know I laughed it off. Montana State 16-1. This is the best 3-point shooting team in this league. If you go through this on the season, like, they shoot the ball well from 3. They shoot a lot of threes. They defend the 3-point line well. They limit 3-point attempts pretty well. I like 3-point discrepancy teams in general when you're looking for teams that could kind of arise out of nowhere in March. Again, they did just beat Weber. It was on their home court, and it was sort of an out-of-body experience in the final 10 minutes. But if they could duplicate that, I think whoever wins that first game is my pick to, well, not win. I'm not going to pick Montana State to win, but I will like their path, whoever wins that first game. But ignore that I just said that. Let's lock in Weber and feel extremely confident.
Yep. We're riding with the Conference Player of the Year, Dylan Jones. So wait, did you look into the last time because Montana State got crushed, right? I actually bet them.
Did Montana upset BC when they had Craig Smith?
No, I thought they did. I bet them, and they didn't even cover. It was in like 2006. I always think that they won that game.
Yeah, that was like a Mandela effect thing. I think I was in a bar and they had a
Yes.
great first half or something. I was like,
Yep,
man,
they were
BC
leading at the
sucks.
half, I think.
Yeah, there we go. That makes sense.
And I think they melted down. They lost by like 12 or something. But when was the last Big Sky tournament win? Not like a play-in.
Montana beat Nevada in the 12-5 game in 2006. And then lost to Boston College in the second round. Maybe that's what we were thinking about, Stuck. So that was a round of 32 game. There we go.
Yeah.
All right.
I think they were catching 8.5. I bet them that they didn't cover. All right, so that was the last one.
That was the last
Yep.
one.
We're going up on 20. I guess they're due.
Yeah.
Maybe the due factor. You can always argue these one way or the other. We're going on almost 20 years with the Big Sky not having an NCAA tournament win. No, I've fallen for this trap so many times, is why I know, is that I fall in love with certain players and then they get, from mid-major, low major that dominate all year. And then you step up in class and the entire scout is to stop you. And then I'm just watching in horror as they have like 4 points and can't get a shot off, they're getting doubled and no one else can step up, which is, when we talked about Samford earlier, you want like a unique style, and then Samford just has shooters and scorers all over. They're not completely reliant on one person. I think that's like the recipe for a team that can win, from a lower tier conference that can win a couple games in the dance. You have to spread the wealth. You have to have multiple options. But it would be fun to see what Dylan Jones could at least do if he gets there. I mean, who else? I don't want to see anyone else from this league. Like at Eastern Washington's a great offense. They run great offense, but they can't beat the high major team. They just the talent, the defense, the talent discrepancy is just too wide. It's finally March, so you know what that means. It's time to say top of the morning to the most famous St. Patrick's Day Shamrock Shavers, our new sponsor, Manscaped. Don't just chase rainbows this March. Make your own pot of gold and groom your little leprechaun with the leaders in below-the-kilt care. Clear your clover forest with Manscaped's Lawnmower 5.0 and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. Head over to manscaped.com and use code BBOC for 20% off plus free shipping. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is your new lucky charm, and it's fully waterproof. So go ahead, shave by the misty moors, shave under a waterfall, shave while betting a second half total. The world is yours. Get 20% off and free shipping with code BBOC at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with code BBOC at manscaped.com. This St. Patrick's Day, make sure your hairy little leprechaun is luckier than ever with Manscaped.